Hey, everybody, we're live here today with the next edition of Recovery in Aviation. Today's going to be pretty exciting. We're going to be talking about blockchain, all right? And hey, we're going to be saying what even is blockchain and who even really cares and what can be done, with blockchain. Does it even matter? All right, we're going to have this interesting conversation today, and I have some experts on blockchain to be able to supplement this and to be able to drive this conversation that we're having today. Hey, if you're an expert on blockchain, jump in and have a conversation with us today because we would like to use your knowledge as part of this broadcast. If you want to learn about blockchain and how it applies in the aviation aerospace industry, hey, stand by. You are not going to want to miss this. Welcome. Good morning. We have LV and Kieran. How are you guys this morning?
Hi, Mark. Thanks for having us here.
Let's see, LV, where are you coming to us from?
Oh, I'm from Hyderabad, from southern part of India, and it's 10:30 in the evening now.
Okay, and Kieran, how about yourself? Where are you from?
I'm also logged in from Hyderabad here in India, same as LV's place.
Fantastic. Isn't it amazing how we can connect with technology all around the world and do this? It's just amazing to me. Hey, LV, let me start with you. Let me just ask you who you are and what do you do?
Great. So I have a very long name. So the shortened form is LV. So I go by LV. I am the co-founder and CTO of Real Variable. We specialize in creating a multi-party collaboration solutions using the blockchain technology as a framework.
Excellent. So you are our blockchain expert that we're going to be bringing into the panel today. Thank you. I appreciate that. Kieran, who are you and what do you do?
Hi, Mark. I am Kiran Prakash. I am an AVP at Real Variable. I take care of the international new account acquisition and strategic partnership building across various domain verticals, talking to a lot of leaders, industry leaders like you, and getting consensus on adoption of blockchain technology across verticals.
Okay, excellent. So you're going to help us understand how it applies within the industry. We have LV, who is our technology expert, and you are application contributor. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Hey, before we go on here, I just wanted to remind all of you out there that we are actually taking questions live here today, and it would really help us out. There's a lot of people that want to understand blockchain technology. And if you look at your screen here, when you're watching a LinkedIn live broadcast, down in the bottom right-hand corner, there's a little button that says share. And if you share that, you can actually share this broadcast out and other people can actually watch the broadcast with us. We really appreciate it if you would do that. Second of all, I'm already starting to get questions coming in. And down there in the comment box, you can add comments and you can become part of our conversation. I love to know where people are. First of all, by starting out, if you would just put in the comment box, tell me where you're watching from. We usually have people watching from all around the world, and I like to call people out and recognize them. So if you're watching, put in your comment box where you're coming from. I'd appreciate that. And then second of all, is if you have questions, we're watching them, put them in, and then we're going to be addressing them with the panel. This is going to be a great discussion today about blockchain. It's one of the things that I'm most excited about and sometimes most confused about. So I think it's going to be a really good discussion today about, does blockchain really matter? Okay, very good. So, hey, let's just jump into this conversation. I want to start off by going to Kieran, and I want people to understand why, Kieran, I have you and LV on this program today. And if you could maybe just start out by saying, who is Real Variable and what do you do at Real Variable?
Yeah, great, Mark. Thanks for the introduction. So Real Variable is an enterprise blockchain company. We established ourselves back in 2017. We have physical presence both in India as well as the US. If you recollect, back in 2017, the cryptocurrencies were at an all-time high, and there were a lot of interest in the blockchain technology at that time. So we chose to look at the underlying technology of blockchain and not really get into cryptos. And that's where supply chain management as a industry or as a domain really clicked or really interested us, because the applications of supply chain management is across various verticals in various domains. We started our journey back then, and then we were fortunate to have global customers in the automotive and logistics space who have already validated our solutions. We have done POCs, we have done live projects for multiple customers, and that has really given us a lot of confidence to take this technology to the other verticals like aviation, consumer electronics, healthcare, and industrial verticals, to name a few.
Okay. Well,
so that's about.
No, well, good. That's good. Well, what I was just going to say is that what's really going to be interesting is that this isn't just a theoretical discussion about blockchain. You guys have actually built applications serving industries and using blockchain technology and proven out its success. You've shown me some of your cases that you've done, and it's really interesting. And so I think it's going to be really interesting to people for us to learn about, how blockchain, what it really is and how it can be used. That's perfect, Kieran. Thank you. I appreciate that. Hey, listen, before I go to LV and have a conversation about this with LV, I like to recognize people that are watching, out there today. We have people coming in from all over the world. It's just really a lot of fun. We have people coming in from Dubai, and we have people coming in from Kenya and from Boise, Idaho. We have Chuck Adams out there coming in from Boise, Idaho. Jim Fitzgerald, he got a hold of me today this morning. He's coming into us from Connecticut. And let's see, down there we have another one there. We have some support from California as well. And really very interesting. One of the so exciting things is that there's so many people that are interested in talking about blockchain. I wanted to just call out to all of you out there. Look, I like it when people ask questions about blockchain. So if you have a question, jump in there and ask the question. One more person. We have somebody that just checked in from Doha, as well, in Qatar. And it's just really cool. It just amazes me that we have people all around the world that jump on at all different times of the day and night and are part of this, conversation. So, hey, listen, let's not dwell on that anymore. I want to get in to talk about some of this good stuff. LV, I like the idea of blockchain. It's really very interesting to me, okay? But I got to tell you is that I've been in IT and I've been in technology my entire career, and I don't completely understand it. I really don't, all right? And so I'm hoping that together we can sort of layer some of this, open some of this up and better understand it. So let me just start off by asking you a really easy question.
Go ahead.
What is blockchain? What even is blockchain? Tell us what blockchain is, okay?
Yes. So, Mark, very interesting. There are, three different words, which are interchangeably used and, very much confusing. Blockchain, distributed ledger, and decentralized technology, right? So we will discuss about, these three, in this discussion. But, what is blockchain, right? Blockchain is essentially, built on a specific data structure, wherein, the data structure is able to create the transactions as a block, and then link these unrelated transactions across different blocks using the the hashing techniques, and then the linkages between the blocks. So the difference between the normal database and this is the database will have all the related transactions in a very normalized way. But here, unrelated transactions grouped as blocks, linked together, which is called chain. That is how it's blockchain.
Okay, all right. So at a very, very high level, I can start to see a little bit what you're talking about. Okay. Now, I think myself and other people that we confuse a bit the internet and what the difference is between the internet and between blockchain, because I've heard people say, well, blockchain, everything's going to be blockchain in the future and it'll be the next evolution of the internet. Well, then my logical question goes to, accessing the internet is like accessing blockchain, right? You go out and you search for information and you find it and you get it off the blockchain. Is that right or not?
Definitely not. So while internet is seen as a mechanism of communication and collaboration, and then trying to understand information, blockchain has typical applications when it comes to in terms of the financial services as well as on the enterprise supply chains, right? So you could look at blockchain as expanding as more of the collaboration network between various businesses, whether it is in the trade or whether it is in the finance or in the manufacturing, rather than becoming the internet of internet coming to in the future. That's the way that I see it, Mark.
Okay, so I think I like the word that you used that said collaboration of data between industries. I think that really clicks with me. So I'm gonna put that one back in my brain and listen to that one. Okay, so all right, so blockchain. One of the things we do is we collaborate information between businesses and companies. All right, good. Let's start with that. The next question I know a lot of people have is they say, what is this word distributed ledger? What does that mean?
Oh yeah, so this is something that which we all know. We all have practiced in the past. But keeping the okay, let me just define the distributed ledger. There is a transaction that happened between you and me, Mark. So you have your ledger, I have my ledger, but at the same time, we are also communicating the same to Kiran, who is totally unrelated to that transaction. But we are also communicating the same to Kiran. So whatever the transactions that are happening between three of us are maintained as a record of transactions with three of us. So we have this ledger. So this record of transactions, which is having a cryptographic audit trail, let us say, technically speaking, is with all the participating parties. So that is what is called distributed ledger.
Okay, so we started off by saying we're collaborating. Okay, that was good. All right, and then now we have this distributed ledger in which we're exchanging information between us. But you brought something else into it. You said that a third party, Kiran, could access it as information. Now, would Kiran be able to change that information?
Definitely, Kiran may not be able to change that information because he is not party to the transaction that has happened between us. So, and if at all, Kiran wants to change the information, he has to change the information in all the three ledgers. Changing in one ledger does not help because the rest of the two ledgers will reject that change.
Okay, so now that we've introduced multiple parties into this, I understand there's also a concept out there which means something is platform agnostic or technology agnostic. Now that we have lots of people accessing information from different locations, what does it really mean then if the blockchain is called technology agnostic or platform agnostic? What does that even mean?
Well, you can build the application. So blockchain, as you would have understood by now, is an underlying layer which is a data structure, which keeps a record of transactions. But to be able to create the record of transaction or view the record, you still need the applications to be built, which are accessed over internet, right? So those applications can be built using any language or in any programming language or any technology, because the various flavors of blockchain provides the different APIs to be able to connect. So you could build using C#.NET, you could build using Mean Stack, you could build using Java. Doesn't matter. You could build using Electron. But at the end of the day, the front-end applications can be built on any technology, while the blockchain provides the APIs.
Okay, so let me ask you this then: is it this blockchain is an underlying technology then that applications are being built on that you just explained to me? Okay, now for the viewers out there, can you relate that underlying technology to something that they've been using or that they better understand today? What does that mean when you say blockchain is like a platform that applications are built on? Give me an example of something that people would understand today with respect to what an underlying platform is.
Let us say you take example of SAP or Oracle e-Business Suite. These are the well-known ERPs in the market. So the user, let us say, creates a transaction by creating, let us say, a particular production batch, right? So the production batch is recorded in this particular SAP instance of this particular user, but it is not broadcast to rest of the participating organizations because the batch is still there, right? And then when the shipment happens of the material from this particular batch to the next level, that is actually a transaction between the parties. So this underlying blockchain here will come in terms of recording those as an event. And then linking the transaction back into the SAP that this event has occurred between party A and party B. So it is a proof that this event has occurred. So even if there is a loss of information that happens between party A and party B, you still have a proof that says that this event has happened. So that is where blockchain comes in. In today's ERP systems, it is very difficult to establish that particular proof because the event is not placed.
Okay, well, why is it difficult? Oh, please jump in, Karen. Yeah, please.
Just to add to LV, so blockchain basically is a multi-party collaboration solution. So what blockchain really does is it helps different parties, different tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier N suppliers, tier N customers collaborate on a single blockchain platform. Now today's ERP systems or the MRO IT systems are very mature in the form of what they are supposed to do as far as supply chain or maintenance transactions are concerned, M&E transactions. So what blockchain really brings to the table is tier N collaboration. So that what I mean by tier N is when you need to talk to your tier 1 or tier 1 customers or suppliers, when you need to talk to beyond this realm, that's when blockchain as a technology comes into picture. So let's say, for example, you have to talk to your logistics provider, you have to talk to your supplier, you have to talk to your customer. That is when blockchain really comes as a collaborative platform which connects all these parties together on a single network without too much of EDI and point-to-point integrations and having one-to-many, many-to-many kind of integration between them.
So we're starting to see more and more usage of that technology out there, and Kieran, that's really good insight. In that we're seeing more people and more applications being built. And hey, I failed to mention this at the beginning, but this blockchain discussion we're having today is part one of a 3-part series. Today, we're going to be talking about blockchain. And then next week, we're going to be talking about what kind of business problems are solved by blockchain. And then the third week, we're going to be talking about some specifics on how that's actually being done in some industries. And so that's really interesting. And that's going to be something we're going to definitely expand on, next week. Hey, let me bring in an interesting thought or aspect. It has intrigued me. I've had discussions, LV, with a good friend of mine who's really, really smart. She's a data scientist that works for Boeing, okay? And I talked to her a while back, and I said, hey, are you thinking about using blockchain, in analytics, all right? And I just have to tell you what her answer was. This person is very intelligent, very smart. She says, I'm not sure that the problems that people are trying to solve can't be solved with a database, all right? Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't other problems that need to be solved by blockchain, but can you help us understand the difference between accessing data and information in a database and putting it in an application on the blockchain?
Right. So when we talk about databases, a database is local to one particular enterprise. It has the information about the enterprise-related activities, as Kiran has mentioned, with the tier 1 suppliers and with the tier 1 customers. And maybe they can bring in additional information from the rest of the suppliers as well. But then there is no consensus, there is no proof. So the information that you get and the analytics that you build on top of it is based on something that you are placing trust in the data or information provided by some third party. When it comes to blockchain, there are various there are various ways of creating solutions or adopting solutions of blockchain. There are solutions which only capture the event; they do not capture the underlying data because of various reasons. You call it GDPR, you call it PII, whatever. This one. So the data is kept off chain and the event is captured on the blockchain as a proof. So in such cases, it is a little bit tricky and difficult to be able to build analytics. But then there are other solutions on blockchain where the GDPR or PII information is of lesser relevance. But you want to keep the information about track and trace of a product. You want to keep the information about country of origin. You want to keep the information about provenance, right? So in such cases, you actually have the information that you are able to collate from multiple parties, which is actually trusted information, because the information in the blockchain is considered to be immutable. Immutable means that it cannot be changed. It's not that it will not be changed. It cannot be changed, right? So that is the advantage that we see with the blockchain kind of solutions.
Yeah. So you brought up you brought up a couple of really challenging concepts that I think I want to dig into just a little bit deeper on. Okay. One of them is that you said decentralized and distributed, and so we've been talking about collaboration and multiple people being able to access information more easily and having it be more secure and protected in this environment. But what does it really mean that something is then decentralized or distributed with respect to blockchain? What does that mean? Help me understand that better.
Centralized or decentralized, distributed is the nature in which the information is stored. Okay, that is for sure. Under the distributed ledger, you have the blockchain layer, which actually creates the blocks and then maintains the linkage of information. The difference between centralized and decentralized is decentralized means every participant has equal rights on the information and on the network. Right? So there are 10 participants. Everybody will have the equal rights in terms of how the information should be published, how the information should be read. When it comes to centralized, there is a centralized authority, who can dictate, who can say that This is the way the distributed ledger will be published, and this is how each party will have access to it. So what we see more and more in the supply chain adoption is the centralized distributed ledgers, where there is a consortium that gets formed, and there is a governance body for that particular consortium, and that consortium decides who should be admitted, and then how the rules of the game are. But if you see the decentralized blockchain, Bitcoin is one such example, Ethereum is one such example, where every participant has equal rights.
If I use the term decentralized or distributed, do you consider them to be the same, or there's something really different?
It's different. Distributed means how you are keeping the record of transactions. Decentralized means what are the rights of the participant for each of the distributed ledgers, right? So the distributed ledger exists whether it is centralized or decentralized. It's just that the rights of the participants are decided when the network is formed. When it comes to centralized, we say that this is the consortium that governs who should what are the rules of the rights that each party has.
Okay, all right. So that makes sense to me when you separate them between distributed and decentralized, and what that really means is that you brought up another word earlier though, and you said that something maybe the blockchain allows things to be immutable. Okay, can you please explain to people out there listening today what immutable means, and why is this important with respect to blockchain?
Oh, fantastic. So I go back to the example of three of us, interacting with each other, and then, three of us maintaining the ledger of all the transactions that are happening between us, right? Now, there is one transaction that has happened between me and Kiran, or you and me yesterday. And then, the transaction is of value, let us say about $10. Now, Kiran changes that to $5. So the Kiran's ledger shows $5, but both our ledgers shows $10. And then when these three ledgers are compared, Kiran's whatever transaction that he has connected will be rejected, which means that the immutability has come in, that even if somebody tries to change the value of the transaction, or wants to create a fraud, it will not be accepted, because all the three ledgers will have to match at any point of time. It will have to be consensus, right? So expand it to a node of networks which are about 100 nodes or 1,000 nodes. So the information that is published on one node, if you have to change across the network, you have to change across 100 nodes at the same time. It is going to be computationally difficult. So that is where the immutability of information comes in. Once it is chronologically recorded, it is recorded. That information cannot be changed.
Okay, so if we have information that's then decentralized and it's immutable, it can't be changed, all right, then how do we ensure that we have this secure environment? How does it remain secure with decentralized, information like that?
Right. So cryptographically, cryptographic audit trail is inherent to the blockchain. So the implementations that are of public in nature automatically stores the information in the cryptographic using the cryptography algorithms. So you can say that the participants who are private to the transactions can using their private key can see the transactions. Rest of the people cannot see the transactions. When it comes to the private chains or centralized distributed ledgers or the consortium networks, there is a different mechanism that is used in terms of maintaining the data security, depending upon off-chain data or on-chain data. But it follows the general principles of cryptography and encryption.
Okay. Well, listen, we've started to have some questions roll in, but just really quickly, I have people that have also joined us, here locally with me from Seattle, Washington, and I always have a great following of people down in Brazil, and so we have Valero that's joined us from down in Brazil, and I just really appreciate you guys checking in and letting us know where you're coming from. If you look at the list of people that are on, we've pretty much hit everybody all around the world, at this point, which is incredible to me, that we have this decentralized, world, okay? And we can access information and we can talk to people and we can exchange information all around the world. It's really amazing. And one of the things I asked you guys to do is to throw some questions at us. Let's take a quick break and answer some questions here along the way. So I have one question there that's come in, and it says, what is the benefit of multi-chain usage in blockchain? I don't even know that I understand that. LV, what does that question mean and what is the answer?
Multi-chain is one of the flavors of blockchain. Like, as the users may relate to, right? When it comes to databases, you have SQL Server, which is Microsoft product. You have Oracle, which is Oracle database. Then you have DB2, which is IBM database. So like this, there are many blockchains that are out there. So some of these blockchains, are the ones which are like Ethereum and Bitcoin network. They are token based. There are certain blockchains, where there is no token required. So everything is called an asset. It's not a token. And then there are blockchains like multi-chain, which does not have smart contracts. So these are like basically chronologically record keeping blockchains, but that does not have any business rules that you can write into. So depending upon what kind of application, the choice of blockchain also happens. So that is what I could understand from that question.
Okay, well, so let me ask you this: is that I've heard and seen that there are many different flavors or types of blockchain that exist out there. It's a bit confusing to understand. Is that, can you somehow help us understand that why is there different terms used for types of blockchain? What does that really mean if someone says that there's this type of blockchain or another and one is better than the other? Can you help us somehow understand that a little bit?
It's a very, very I would say very superficial subject, but I'll try to break it into three parts, right, Mark? So the first part is when people talk about blockchain, inherently they relate to Bitcoin, and then now they are also able to relate to Ethereum. Okay, so blockchains basically are looking at like to be able to, as I said, like create the record of transactions, but also in terms of validating the transactions. So there are different consensus mechanisms that are applied. So proof of work, proof of stake, proof of authority, whatnot, right? So depending upon like what like Bitcoin works on proof of work. Ethereum so far has been working on proof of work. There are different networks which are trying to bring in proof of stake. And then there are networks and there are different flavors of blockchain adoption that is happening without even having to have the need of the consensus mechanism, but just keeping the DLT, like distributed ledger. So the race has started with Bitcoin, and then people have seen that Bitcoin is just a transfer of asset or transfer of value. You cannot create business rules based upon that. So that is where Ethereum became much prominent after Bitcoin. And after Ethereum, we have seen the plethora of applications like Quorum has, which is basically built on the Ethereum platform, which has something called private contracts. Then IBM has created, along with Linux Foundation, Hyperledger Fabric, which is more enterprise grade because it has a different way of managing certificates, and then there's to be security features. I think IBM understood how it works, so they created the Hyperledger Fabric. Then you have companies like R3 creating Quora. And then there are flavors for DeFi, which is like Stellar. So it's like an evolution of how people have started looking at databases in the past. Is a similar manner wherein the different techniques are being adopted in terms of creating various flavors of blockchain.
Right. So it looks to me like there's a lot of different ways that that blockchain can be used in different implementations of it. And I just have to be honest with you, is that I've never been a coder, I've never been a programmer, and so I've never understood things all the way down to the very detailed level of how these things connect. And so I think we have a couple different levels of conversation that occur between people. I know we have people watching here today who are very knowledgeable and very detailed understandings of development and of the concepts in development and how the usage of blockchain is going to be able to advance that. And then on the other hand, guys, we have people on here that are business people and they understand and have leveraged technology all their lives, and they're just trying to figure out how to be successful, using new technology to be able to save money and to do things faster and to make things more efficient and more secure and all those things that come from blockchain. All right. And so again, I want to tell you guys is that today's discussion was intended to focus on a little bit more of uncovering blockchain and what it really is And then next week, it's going to flow into, what business problems does that really solve? We're going to give you a little bit of a preview of that in just a second. Before I go do that, I want to just make another call out there and say, if you got questions, we have experts here, on this live broadcast today. And I see the whole long list of people that are out there and questions. If you have questions, don't be afraid to throw them in the box and ask questions. Let's find a really hard one that LV can't answer maybe and see if we can't stump him. And he has to go research it or something like that, But if you have questions, put them out there, all right? Hey, listen, I'm going to ask you one more technical question, which maybe it's not too technical for you, but I'm going to ask you one more. Then we're going to talk about some of the business problems. I've heard people talk about blockchain transparency. What does that mean? Can you explain to me what blockchain transparency means?
It's more to do with the way that the information is recorded or the events are recorded. Transparency of information is inherent if you have the right to view that information. So which means that, there is a transaction that has happened between Mark and LV. And then, we want to make it transparent to the rest of the network. Then, the rest of the network will be able to see and validate that, this transaction indeed has happened. In an otherwise scenario, they will have to come to you through API call. They'll have to come to me through API call, fetch the information, reconcile, and then, figure out whether the transaction really happened or not. So, because the event is on the network, the information is on the network, and we have opened it to the network, transparency is inherent.
Okay, so it's really just referring to the accessibility or availability or the visibility into what's happening. And by using blockchain technology, we're providing greater transparency and greater visibility into what's happening in those transactions. Perfect. All right. Okay, very good. Hey, listen, Kieran, I want to come and ask you, a few questions. Is it, if we shift this mindset just a little bit now, and if I take a look at some of the type of problems that are being solved in the industry, we have buzzwords that get thrown out there like track and trace and provenance, how else the blockchain might be used. Can you shed a little bit of light, to us on what does it mean when someone says, track and trace? What is the application? What is the business problem you're solving by the term track and trace?
Right. Yeah. So, Mark, track and trace, if you consider any component or any part in aviation, so a part actually gets, many parties exchange hands with respect to one particular part. So you have one airline A using one part, it goes to MRO, gets refurbished, gets repaired, overall, goes to airline B, then, it kind of goes to airline C and so on and so forth. So the part really transfers or, it moves along the network. Different parties access the part at different point of time. So it is really important to maintain the entire historical information with respect to maintenance history, with respect to which part was operated, what are the current flight cycle, flight hours, how much each party operated, and whether all the maintenance schedule was done on time, whether the maintenance, who did the maintenance, what were the certificate credentials of that particular engineer who did the maintenance. So all this information becomes very critical, when the part keeps constantly moving in the aviation industry. And some of these components, the large ones, the critical ones, they have a lifespan of 10 to 15 years. So you can imagine the amount of time it spends changing hands with different parties. So it becomes very important for any person to understand the history, where the part has been installed, where it has been removed, where it was overall, what are the credentials. So all this becomes very critical as far as part track and trace is concerned.
So how does blockchain help us solve this problem either more efficiently or better, than what current methodologies are being used today?
Yeah. So today what happens is all this information resides in silos, in different systems, different information resides. So airline will have the information of what part usage it had done for a particular period of time. Airline B will have the information in its system. Then the MROs will have the information of the maintenance and, the other repair related activities which was done on the part. So everybody has the information, but the information is not available at one particular place where that can be accessed independently without the need to actually go and ask for this information to various parties. That is where blockchain as a technology comes into picture, where all this information can be residing on, let's say, a blockchain network. It can be a permission blockchain or it can be a public blockchain, depending upon what mode, what type of blockchain network do the parties prefer. And the information will be available in a kind of a digital form. So the You can say the digital equivalent of the part can be residing on the blockchain, be it the certificates, 8130 IASA, and the entire maintenance history, and where the particular part has been installed at different points of time. So this is one of a classic example of how part track and trace, or how track and trace can really work. And back to birth traceability is something which is a very important concept as far as blockchain in aviation is concerned.
Yeah, I know that this is a very difficult problem for people. I know people that are in aircraft records, and there's a tremendous amount of time and effort which is spent searching and gathering information in order to be able to establish, the proper maintenance history on parts and on aircraft and different things. And so I can see where using a decentralized environment that's immutable, as we've talked about, and has visibility and transparency, can allow us to be able to keep more comprehensive records and maintenance history. Okay. Hey, many times the word provenance is used out there. Can you explain to us what the word provenance means?
Yeah. So provenance is basically tracking the part right from the place where it got manufactured and to the entire life cycle of the part. So even as far as manufacturing is concerned, you have the part which let's say you have a component which will have multiple sub-assemblies, and that sub-assemblies will have another few sub-assemblies, and it will be built by a supplier network. Those parts will be shipped or manufactured by different parts or sub-components within it. So when it comes to provenance, it basically means to establish the entire traceability back to the smallest part, which can be possibly tracked on a network. That is what really gives you the provenance. So you have the traceability of how the part was made, where it was made, what was the manufacturing date, who was the manufacturing organization, and how the part has actually moved through its life cycle, the operational life cycle when it gets installed on an aircraft. So when we have this entire information, it becomes a kind of a digital provenance. That's what we call digital provenance.
Okay, perfect. So if I simplify that into layman's terms, it's the earliest known, the origin, or the earliest history of something. That's perfect. All right. And it gives us the easier ability to be able to establish that. Great. Hey, listen, we continue to have questions come in. I want to shift over and answer a few questions. If we could grab that third question from the bottom there, maybe we could just quickly read that on the screen. Yep, there we go. We have one from Akash. It says immutability and regulations. All right. How do you see that evolving? How do we see the pace of adoption and acceptance of this? Which industries are leading the way? So maybe we can just break that down into a couple of questions here. Is that, how do we see this evolving in the industry? I know there's a lot of enthusiasm about blockchain moving forward. How quickly is it being adopted? Well, let me break it down to three pieces. Is it being used today? How quickly is it being adopted? And is it moving into the aviation industry?
Right. So when it comes to LV, you want to go ahead or should I go ahead?
Yeah. So is it being used, Mark? Yes, it is being used. Is it being used to the extent of its potential? Probably not. Okay. And what is the next questions?
It was like, how quickly is it moving forward and being adopted, like in aviation or that type of thing? So yeah.
Right. Yeah, Kiran, you can answer that.
Yeah. So Rakesh, to answer your question, the industries which are leading the way as far as blockchain adoption is concerned, you have fintech, which is probably the number one today. You have banks collaborating, coming onto common blockchain platforms and networks and collaborating for financial transactions. You have automotive industries, you have logistics industries, which have formed global consortiums, in different sectors, different areas, as far as information exchange is concerned. Now, coming to aviation, one of the biggest challenges, what we understand, is the governance network. So there has to be a kind of a governance network which has to be first established as to what data can be put on the blockchain. You may not want to end up sharing information which you may consider as a competitive information. So at least a minimum framework has to be established as to what information do you consider it can be made available publicly. When I say publicly, it means to the other competitors or other parties in the ecosystem, be it maintenance information, be it flight information. So all these information, first of all, there needs to be a governance framework to be established. And once the framework is established, then we can have different parties involved in sharing the information based on the business rules which have been created.
Okay.
I hope I answered your question.
Yeah. No, that was a great answer. Thank you. And so one thing I wanted to add to that, though, is it might seem like sometimes the governance part of it, is unsurmountable, meaning, very difficult to get over, but it's being done in different industries today. And the aviation aerospace industry is very receptive to improving access and improving history and improving safety and security. And so I have seen the regulatory agencies adopting new technologies very rapidly because they want to see us leveraging these things in aviation. Hey, we have some more questions down here I want to jump to. We have one from Marcellus. If we could click on that, Marcellus Spears right there. It says, LV, do you believe that aviation aerospace industry needs to generate critical mass around one particular blockchain for the industry to build beneficial applications? So what is your opinion as far as building mass around one blockchain versus another? Do you have an opinion on that, LV?
Oh, yeah, I do. So a lot of teams across the world are working on creating interoperability between blockchains, including us. So we created a platform, which can speak to different blockchains, but can still add as a overseeing layer in terms of, pushing the information and getting the information from the blockchains. So to be able to answer your question, a one blockchain approach has failed in most of the industries, because depending upon the type of application, we need to select the kind of blockchain. If it is financial related applications, then there is a different kind of blockchain adoption that we need to look at. There is a supply chain collaboration kind of a application. What we talk about, it's a different blockchain adoption that we need to look at. So there is not a single stick kind of a solution that says it's only one blockchain. It could be many blockchains for the industry, but as Kiran has mentioned, creation of consortiums is the key. Gathering the critical mass of participants across different tiers is the key. Creating a governance structure is the key. If those are done, the blockchain implementation for multi-party collaboration becomes seamless. In our experience, Mark, creating the solution, creating the governance structure with the automotive and logistics industry, it took us 9 months to 10 months. The solution rollout was only 3 to 4 months.
Okay, and so, and I know that you guys have had some very good success in automotive and in logistics, in package movements with respect to aviation and things. And so I know that those problems have been solved and they will continue to be solved, in our industry. Hey, next question. We have one from Aravind here. How do you see the scalability of systems across various industries? So how scalable is blockchain, and why is it any different than anything else?
There are, many, public blockchains, if you see, there are questions in terms of transaction processing speeds. So these decentralized, blockchains have a transaction speeds of 15 transactions per second, which is way less, if you ask me, compared to the enterprises. Right? So, but when it comes to the adoption of, the blockchains as a private network, the speed is not a problem at all. We have seen about 4,300 transactions per second kind of speeds. In terms of scalability of systems across various industries, this is one problem that we will encounter as we start implementing blockchain, because in the same value chain, not everybody uses SAP, not everybody uses Oracle. Some of those use different homegrown systems. Some of them use different flavors of Excel sheets. So gathering the information and then making sure that the ledgers are formed properly is going to be a challenge unless we find a different way of doing that. So if I understand that correctly, scalability of systems across various industries is a typical challenge when we are implementing multi-party collaboration solutions.
But it sounds like you're saying that it's been solved already in some industries, and so we expect for that to be able to continue. Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, I have a question down here from Rakesh Dixit again. I just wanted to throw that question up there. Is that how do you see regulators, I guess, adopting the immutability? That's a hard word to say. Immutability benefits, and what time frame do you see this happening? So, how do we see regulators adopting the fact that this is a technology which allows things to be unchangeable, and how quickly do you see this happening?
We are seeing different cases. So if you look at the context of Middle East, the governments in Middle East, particularly in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, they have been experimenting quite a lot, with the blockchain adoption, using the public, even for the public services. There are, countries in Europe, who have tried, creating the asset register, creating the property tax payments on blockchain. So from a regulatory perspective, yes, as more and more awareness comes in, people will start understanding and then creating the regulatory frameworks around immutability of information. But everybody is educating that keep the GDPR and the PII in the context when you're creating the blockchain-based solutions for the enterprises.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate that answer. Hey, one more question here I want to go to. It's from Charles Barnes. I'm not certain that I completely 100% understand the question, but I wanted to throw it up here so that we can have a discussion about it. It says parts have to be the same configuration of that particular aircraft. Can we talk a little bit about aircraft parts and using of the blockchain to track aircraft parts? What kind of problems do we foresee or solutions do we foresee around tracking of aircraft parts?
Yeah. So Mark, to answer that question, we can do it in two ways basically. One is what you called as digital twin of a part or a component, and the other one is called digital twin of the aircraft itself. So when all these parts or components actually roll up to different position codes within an aircraft, the entire configuration is established, and you have the right part serial numbers, available for the aircraft. So this information is readily available, or at least to a great extent, it is already available in the MRO system. So if we can pull this information onto blockchain network, then you can have this entire configuration history of a particular part or an aircraft readily available for access. Now, this can be obviously access controlled depending upon who wants to see. Let's say, for example, a regulatory authority would like to see that information, or even the lessors. So in the industry today, almost 50 to 60% of the aircrafts are lessor owned. So you have a customer scenario here. But lessors don't really get the information at the right point of time when they need the access to. So blockchain as a technology can really be a game changer for the lessors to have the information available at any point of time, and they can have the exact valuation done depending upon the parts attached to the aircraft and the maintenance history and schedule of the parts which are currently attached to a particular aircraft.
Okay. So let's sort of started transitioning here into talking about some of the value in doing this, and I wanted to point out to all of you watching. Remember, is that I said there's no way we can uncover all this information in 45 minutes in a discussion, but it's just so very interesting, and I really appreciate you guys bringing this up. But there's a couple more things that we want to do over the next few minutes before we wrap up this broadcast today. And we started talking about the demand for this. Now, next week, when we have this conversation on Wednesday, February 24th, all right, we're going to talk about the business problems that are being solved, all right? But Kieran, I wonder if you could tell me a little bit about, what's happening out there in the aviation industry, and why is there a need to be able to use something like blockchain technology to solve some of the business problems? Just give us a little precursor of what we're going to talk about next week.
Yeah. So essentially, what we are trying to address here is see how blockchain can help the MRO industry. So you have the MRO industry, which is a very complex. There are different parties doing different maintenance, repairs, different activities. So it is all very complicated at this point of time. And when it comes to blockchain adoption, there has been some consortium which has been formed in the aviation industry, and it has been there for quite a while. But we are not very sure how much or how far it has progressed. In fact, we are also very eager to work collaboratively with such initiatives on blockchain with various parties involved. So essentially, what we are trying to address is how can blockchain help reduce maintenance cost, and how can it improve multi-party efficiency, operational efficiency. These are the two main things which blockchain as a technology we are attempting to solve in the aviation industry.
Okay, well, good. And so I think those are really good thoughts that'll lead us into next week. All right. And so if you for a minute think about the problems that are being solved, you said maintenance, you said multi-parties being involved in different aspects of maintenance. And so next week when we begin this conversation, we're going to start talking about specific business problems that are being solved by blockchain. Like I know today already you've solved problems like parts and logistics and visibility of parts in a supply chain process, that have tremendously optimized logistics for people. You've also solved problems in the aviation industry from the package, transfer perspective, and some other automotive kind of problems. But next week, we're going to focus on business problems that are being solved by blockchain. Hey, before I go on, let me see if I have any other questions. Let me take one last question, then we're going to move on to close up the broadcast here. But if we could take that last question from Mohammed. Here we have Mohammed, who asked a question. Recently, a new platform called GATS, Global Aircraft Trading System, was launched, I think, by GE or other industry partners. From the demonstration, it looks like the blockchain technology is embedded. Are you aware of this platform? Do you know of this platform? And do you know if blockchain is being used? Have you heard of the GATS platform?
Not sure, Mark.
That's okay. That's all right. Well, that's one thing that we'll definitely investigate, and we'll take and put this onto the discussion for next week. And I really appreciate, Mohammed, you bringing that up, because we're looking for places in the industry where blockchain is being used, specifically in aviation, and I want that to be part of our conversation. Hey, this has really been a great conversation, guys. I really feel like, I have a better appreciation for blockchain, all right? And I know we just hit across the top, and LV, you probably were really bored by the questions that I was asking, all right? But I think the majority of people out there know this word blockchain, but they don't completely understand it, and we definitely don't understand how it's going to leverage success within the aviation industry, right? So I think we've gotten a little bit better idea of it here today. And what we're going to do next week is we're going to say what kind of business problems are being solved by this, and we'll have some other really good conversations surrounding that, all right? So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up here today. And just as an interim, just sort of comment here, if people would like to find out more about what Real Variable is doing with respect to blockchain, Kieran, can they reach out to you and have a conversation with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm reachable on that email address. Please feel free to reach out to me. I'm more than happy to address your questions. Okay,
fantastic. And also, you're on LinkedIn, right, Kieran?
Yeah, it's the same name, Kieran.
You can reach LinkedIn on Kieran. And I'm going to post LV's LinkedIn in one of the comments in this broadcast, because the spelling is a little bit difficult. So I'm going to post his LinkedIn so you can reach out to Kieran or LV and continue this conversation. Gentlemen, listen, this is really a very interesting subject to me, because I am passionate about digital transformation in the aviation industry. And this is an upcoming technology, and you guys are making a difference. And I'm really excited to be able to continue this conversation with you. We only barely cracked open the surface about talking about, blockchain. And I want to learn more, and we want to dig deeper into this subject. So for all those of you who've been watching, there's people all over the world that have been watching today. I really want to thank you for watching this broadcast today. And join us next week at 9 o'clock Pacific time, which is the same time we went live today on Thursday, the 24th, right? Is it Thursday? Wednesday, the 24th. Yeah, join us, and we will be very happy and excited to be able to have this conversation on the 24th of February. Gentlemen, thanks for joining today. I appreciate all the knowledge that you've shared and your enthusiasm for what you do.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Mark, and thanks.
Okay, great, very good. Hey, listen, I'm going to sign off today and tell everybody fair winds and following seas, and thank you for being with us today. Have a great day. Bye now.
Thank you, Mark.